Today, we become legends.
Alright, it's been a while since we've done a tier list, and I had a pretty cool idea for one. It's based on whether the gods should have reworks or not. So I know this is a very controversial topic. A lot of people, they have gods that they're the favourites and they never want to see reworked, even if a lot of people think they're a bad design. And so I'm not trying to rip on your god here if I put it in, like, for example, the full rework category. I'm just giving my own opinion on these and whether I think a god should be reworked or not. I'm not saying they necessarily should be, or the high-res definitely have to do what I'm asking here. This is just my personal opinion. So the tiers are near perfect, which obviously there's no perfect gods in Smite, so I didn't create a perfect category because no one would go in it, but these are the gods that I really enjoy the design of. I don't think they need any changes really other than minor balance number changes to make sure they're balanced in the meta. They don't need any like major kit changes. Solid design is like very solid. Most gods will probably be in here actually. This will probably be the largest tier. It's a god where generally they have a very solid design, but they might have one or two small issues that you don't really like that you would change. Has some issues is like, you could probably do with like some minor changes to this god maybe to make him a little bit more balanceable, a little more fun. Needs minor changes is like, yeah, you definitely need to make some changes, whereas it has some issues. It's like you could leave them as is and a lot of people will be completely fine with it. Needs minor changes is like a god absolutely needs some kind of like change to maybe one or two of their abilities. A partial rework is, for example, like the Thor or the Bastet rework or the Odin rework that we've had recently. Those are reworks that generally touch like two abilities, maybe three tops in like minor ways, like adding a little additional effects to them or perhaps changing one ability entirely, like it, for example, in Bastet's rework. So those are characters that like I genuinely think have like a big problem with their design and need some kind of partial rework. And then the final category is obviously full rework, where I think the god design is entirely unworkable and I think they should just completely start from scratch with the character design and redesign their kit. Alright, so let's just jump in with Achilles. So Achilles I would say is a solid design. I have like a couple of problems with Achilles, mostly in that his 2 feels like it isn't really an ability, but in general I feel like Achilles is definitely a very solid design. Agni, near perfect. I don't think I would change anything about Agni, to be completely honest. Just, as I said, with a near perfect here, minor balance changes to keep him in balance in terms of the meta. AMC has some issues. His mobility is a little questionable. His highs only give him movement speed, with having no true mobility. He does end up being a bit of like a kind of I snowball and win the game, or I get bodied early and lose type of character, which I don't particularly like, but I don't see any major problems with AMC. I don't think he needs changes whatsoever. I think they could leave him as he is and he'd be completely fine. I just would change a couple of things. Apuash, so this is either full or partial rework. I think I'll go with partial because I do like some aspects of Apuash's design, like the fact that he's generally meant to be like one of the better anti-healing gods in the game. With his 3 stunning healers, his anti-healing, I think it's 1 also anti-heals. Like, he's a very prominent anti-heal mage, I do like that aspect of his design, which is why I would say he only deserves a partial rework. The corpses are also a cool idea. I would just rework a lot of his major abilities. Amaterasu, near perfect. Probably one of my favourite design gods in the entire game. I wouldn't change anything about Amaterasu, as I said, other than other small balance changes like numbers. Anhur, near perfect. I don't think I would change much about Anhur, to be completely honest. Anubis, this is an interesting one. I think I'm genuinely going to put Anubis in has some issues because I don't think Anubis needs any changes, any major changes to his kit. I think he's actually fine as he is, even though he's a little bit toxic for the game sometimes. I think he's actually fine as he is, as like a noob trap, basically. Like, I don't think he needs changes. I would like to see him changed, but I would like to see AMC changed. I don't think Anubis completely needs changes. Ao Kuang, I'll also put in has some issues. He's a little bit of like a kind of break the meta or never appear kind of god. You either never see Ao Kuang or he's absolutely dominating the meta, carrying every game, which is a little bit of an issue with his design. Aphrodite, partial rework. I do like the idea of her having a soulmate mechanic and her abilities applying to the soulmate also. I think that's a very cool idea and they should keep that, but rework most of the entire rest of the kit is really cancer. Apollo, he might be our first needs minor changes. I really dislike Apollo's ultimate. I think it's super annoying, super trolly, just leads to a lot of split pushing or like getting out of a fight on no health and getting back and winning it because of it. It's a really feels bad ability in my opinion, Apollo's. Also his mez is a little feels bad, but I kind of like that as an aspect of his design. Arachne, full rework. Everyone that knows me knows that Arachne is probably my most hated god in the entire game next to Aphrodite. Aphrodite, I think, there are some cool aspects of her design that you could keep and do a partial rework on her and she'd probably be fine. Arachne just reworked the whole thing. I don't think her kit works. Ares, he's either solid design or perfect. I don't think I've really changed too much about Ares, to be completely honest with you. I do like his design as like an aggressive support. Artemis has some issues. Similar to Ao Kuang, Artemis either comes in and absolutely dominates the meta or you literally never see her. I'd like to see some changes to her core kit that make her a little bit more balanceable, basically. Artio, probably minor changes like Apollo. I don't think she needs any major kit reworks, but there are some annoying aspects of her similar to Apollo that I would change. The 6-second cripple, notably. I'll change that somehow. Maybe make it still a cripple or something, but, not so oppressive. Athena, near perfect. I don't think I'd change anything about Athena other than maybe making her base kit a little bit more impactful, because it's like the taunt is everything with Athena. The dash feels a little unimpactful. The 3 does as well. Like maybe give her the 3 a root or something like that, but maybe I'll pull her down to a solid design for that, because I think she could have a couple of changes. Awelix, near perfect. Awelix is one of my favorite designs in the entire game, despite the fact that she's not like my main god. I really do like Awelix's design a lot, and I don't think I would change anything. Baba Yaga, solid or has some issues? Probably has some issues. You know, her release was obviously terrible. The house still like body blocks people and stuff like that. I don't really like her having RNG in her kit, but once again, I'm not going to put her down here because I don't think you need to change her. She's fine as she is. I just probably would make some minor changes if I was like the lead designer, for example. Bacchus, near perfect. Don't have any problems with Bacchus's design whatsoever. Bacca, however, full rework in my opinion. Bacchusura is just incredibly toxic for the game. All he does, I'm coming at this from a conquest perspective, but I know he also causes problems in duel and maybe other casual game modes like Joust, I'm not really sure, but in conquest, Bacchusura is just an absolute menace. He just power farms early game with Golden Blade and Eat Minion, comes out of the jungle 3 levels up on the mid and just starts absolutely snowballing, and it's very hard to deal with him if you don't know his character design very well. I think that's a big problem for the game. It's very similar to Arachne actually, and I think they both deserve full reworks. Baron Samedi, near perfect. I don't think I would change anything about Baron. Obviously his release was a bit of a shit show, but they fixed him, they fixed all the bugs. They've made him pretty balanced in my opinion. I actually really like where Baron Samedi's at right now, one of my favorite designs in the game. Bastet, so this is an interesting one because she did receive a partial rework recently. I think I can only put Bastet in full rework based on how unsuccessful her partial rework was. You know, I don't want them to partially rework her again and her also be as bad as she is right now, like, for the game. I think just full rework her, honestly, start from scratch. Bellona, obviously near perfect. I don't think I'll change anything about Bellona, to be completely honest. She's been one of my favorite gods since she released in Season 2 and still is. Cabrakan, an interesting one. See, I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, Cabrakan does way too much damage, rework him. I actually think it's fine to have support so like are more aggressive and do more damage, but I think he has some issues. I don't think he needs changes, but Cabrakan for sure has some issues. You know, his 3 is a little bit problematic in that it basically insta-clears waves. I'm not sure how you could change that, to be really honest with you, but yeah, it all causes like wall problems, you know, blocking your teammates and things like that. Maybe there's a way to fix that, I'm not really sure. But obviously he's a wall character, so, you know. There's only so much you can do to his walls before they're not even walls. Camazotz has some issues. Once again, similar to Alquang and Artemis from before, except more early game skewed than late game skewed. Camazotz absolutely comes out and dominates the meta in both jungle and solo, or you don't really see him. I think some things could be changed with him there to make him a little bit less volatile. Cerberus, solid design. Not one of my complete favorite designs, not near perfect, but definitely a solid design on Cerberus. Kernanos, probably similar. His release was a bit of a shit show, but for the last couple of seasons, he's been completely fine. Chak, I would also put Chak in solid design. I personally don't like him, but I don't really have a huge problem with how Chak's designed. You know, it's this big early game bully with a lot of like sustain and damage. That's fine. Chang'e, so this may be an unpopular opinion, but as cool as Chang'e's passive is, I really hate it and wish she had a different passive that was a bit more useful. Because in Conquest, like you just time your backs and buy items anyway. The passive becomes like a lot less useful unless you're playing her like solo or doing a challenge build. I will put her in needs minor changes though, because I don't think she needs a partial rework. The rest of her kit's entirely fine. Charybdis, so obviously a little bit volatile right now, being a recent god release. I would say it has some issues, to be honest. I don't think she needs changes like right after release, but it has some issues. Chernobog, I hate his ult so much that I might even put him in needs minor changes, because I think the ult needs changing. The fact that it global slows you when you're not even a part of the fight that Chernobog is ulting to is just something that shouldn't happen. It's really annoying in my opinion. Getting affected by something that like is happening on the other side of the map that you have absolutely nothing to do with, like if you're in solo or whatever, you're trying to run away on like no health from the enemy solo laner, the enemy Chernobog decides to ult to mid, you die for that, and it's a bit annoying because usually that wasn't even the Chernobog's plan. So I would rework Chernobog's ultimate, specifically removing the slow, and I wouldn't change anything else, so it needs minor changes. Chiron, solid design, no problems with Chiron whatsoever. Kronos, solid design or has some issues. I think I'll put him in has some issues because once again he's very volatile. He either comes out and absolutely slaps everyone or you never see Kronos, really. Cthulhu, so a bit of a shit show of a release honestly, but I would say solid design. I don't really have any major problems with Cthulhu anymore since they kind of balanced him out. Cuchulainn, near perfect, no problems with Cuchulainn whatsoever. Generally a warrior I quite like. Cupid, so here I'm talking about kit design, not visual design. Otherwise Cupid will be down here. I hate Cupid's visual design. I think he's one of the gods that is vastly in need of a redesign. But in terms of kit design, I don't really have any major problems with Cupid. I'll probably put him in a solid design. Daji, I like Daji a lot. She's a little bit volatile in terms of like she dominates or feeds, but I don't think enough to drop her down one tier. I do really like Daji's kit design a lot, and there's a lot of unique little things you can do with it to kind of maximize yourself. Danzaburo, I honestly think partial rework or maybe needs mana changes if I'm being generous. Danzaburo, I just really hate the god. The taunt jar is so fucking annoying. The rocket, like, I really don't like his design whatsoever. Discordia needs minor changes purely because I would just like remove the last spamming from the ult. It's super fucking annoying. I know it's more of like a design problem and not a gameplay thing, but I really just don't like that she just makes you last spam when you ult. But yeah, they're trying to crack down on that, and then Discordia ult just makes you last spam. It's a bit annoying. Also, her 3 I think is a bit of a poorly designed ability because all it does is like, it's not really an ability, it's just incentivizing you to use more of your 2 and your 1 to just spam at people. I don't really like that. I would like her to have like an actual third ability that did something more substantial. But I wouldn't say she like needs an entire partial rework. I think just minor changes will be completely fine for Discordia. Erlang Shen, as much as I want to put him up here, he can't be up here. I love him to bits, but he has some issues. His damage output is just absolutely ridiculous. You know, his 1 is one of the best abilities in the game, in my opinion, genuinely one of the best basic abilities. And it's fine to have warriors that play more aggressive and a bit assassin-like, but Erlang Shen pushes the barriers a little too far, in my opinion. I think they should rework him either into like more of a warrior-based playstyle, where they give him a little bit more defensive capability and a little less offense, or just make him an assassin. I think either one of those will be fine. Honestly, thinking about it, I think that needs to happen. I don't think Erlang Shen can be left in his current warrior state doing what he does, so I think I genuinely have to put him here. Even though I love the design and I love playing Erlang Shen, I think if I'm being objective, I have to put him here. Fafnir, near perfect. No problems with Fafnir's design whatsoever. Fenrir needs minor changes. Brutalize is a problematic ability. Either you take the entire Brutalize and you cry about it, or you mez him or stun him out of it, or jump and he cries about it. Also, the ult, you know, the ult is like you beads it and he cries about it. If you don't have beads, you die to a tower. There's definitely some problems with Fenrir that I think need to be addressed, but I don't think he needs a full-on partial rework. Freya, so obviously Freya's the most reworked god in Smite history and still isn't balanced, so I guess I should just put her in full rework. You know, similar to Bastet, her reworks haven't been successful, she's still in a bad state, so I think just full rework her, to be honest. I don't think these partial reworks are going to do it for Freya. Ganesha, near perfect. One of my favourite guardians, no problems with Ganesha whatsoever. Geb, similar thing, I really enjoy playing Geb. Gilgamesh though, Gilgamesh is definitely further down the list. The question is, does he need minor changes or a partial rework? Probably minor changes. I think I do like his kit design overall. It's just a matter of like, he's very hard to balance and also doesn't really play like a warrior, plays more like an assassin, similar to Erlang Shen, who's also down here, so I think some kind of minor changes could bring Gilgamesh into a good spot. Guan Yu, near perfect, no problems whatsoever. Hachiman, fine. A little bit boring in my opinion, but no real like problems with the design, to be honest. Hades, I would say partial rework. I think some of Hades' design aspects are pretty okay, but there's also some that are a real problem, like mostly his 3 and his ult. Like, if you rework his 3 and his ult, I think he's completely fine. I don't really have a huge problem with Hades in terms of he needs a full rework, like some of these down here, but I think similar to Aposh and Aphrodite, giving some minor changes to his very specific abilities will make him a lot more, like, fun and balanceable. I think I can't in good conscience put Hebo as a solid design, even though I kinda think he is, but I think he has some issues, just because, like, he's very sort of, he's a very swing-related god, you know, he's going to absolutely dominate the meta or you're never going to see him. Haim, after all the changes since release, similar to Hebo, I feel bad putting him in solid design, so maybe I'll put him in has some issues, mostly for his 3. I really think his 3 is just, like, poorly designed for the game, and it's really, really annoying to just, like, teleport out of the fight and, like, no one can kill you that way. I don't like that about his design. Hell also has some issues. I think you could leave Hell as she is and she's not going to be a big problem for the game, but similar to Hebo and stuff like that, you don't really see Hell or she's absolutely like dominating the meta from like solo and mid at the same time. Like, she definitely has some issues for sure. I can't put her any higher than that. Hera is fine, not one of my favourites, but pretty fine. Hercules, also fine in my opinion. I think his 3 is like verging on putting him down here because his 3 is a bit stupid, but since they nerfed it quite a lot since like the olden days, I think it's actually pretty fine. Horus, near perfect, no problems with Horus. Or actually, maybe solid design, because his early game damage is a bit stupid with this one of his 2. Hu Yi, fine, no problems. Hunbats, little bit of an ult bot, in my opinion. I would like to see some changes to his base kit, maybe even a rework of one of the abilities, just to make him a little bit more interesting. So I'll probably put him in has some issues. Iset, fine, solid design, no problems there. Izanami, partial rework or needs minor changes? Maybe minor changes. I just really don't like that Izanami wins the lane for free, and that's just kind of an issue with her autos. I'm not really sure how you could fix that, but it really is a problem that she just like absolutely dominates the laning phase with no skill required whatsoever. Janus, amazing design, one of my favorite design gods in the entire game. Janus just plays completely different to anything you've ever seen in Smite, and it's a lot of fun to play with. Jingwei, minor changes, I think just change her passive. She's already the safest god in the game, she doesn't also need a passive that flies her back to the lane for free. Like, just change her passive to something else more interesting, and then I'm pretty much fine with Jingwei. Jormungandr, solid design, you know, brings something unique to the table with the anti-knock-up stuff and how big he is, but overall I'm not a huge fan of Jormungandr. Kali, has some issues, I would say. I don't really like Kali's design in that she's kind of like a reverse Izanami in that once she gets to late game, she just wins for free, whereas Izanami, you know, in the early laning phase, she just wins for free with absolutely no skill required. It's the same thing with Kali in the late game. You know, you can have an absolutely brain-dead team and be against better players than you, but if you got Kali to late game, you can probably win. So that's a bit of a problem with her design, but I don't think she needs minor changes. Similar to Hell or something, you could probably leave her in the game as she is and it wouldn't be a problem. Khepri, solid design. Honestly, perfect, you know, he brings a lot of cool stuff to the table. King Arthur, King Arthur has some issues, let's say. I'll be generous to him. I think a lot of people will put King Arthur in needs minor changes or a partial rework, but I genuinely absolutely love his kit design and I wouldn't change him whatsoever. But the only reason I'm putting him in has some issues is because, you know, he obviously does. Kukulkan, I'll put him in solid. You know, it's a bit of a boring god to me. I really don't like the god, but I have no problems with his actual design. Kumbhakana, pretty fine. Kuzumbo, honestly, probably solid, I would say. He could go down to have some issues because, like, his spikes are a bit annoying. The fact that his 3, like, absolutely one-shots you pushing you through a wave, no one really expects that, and it can cause a bit of unexpected damage. So whether I should put him here or here is debatable, but I'll put him in solid design. Okay, new Loki. This one's gonna get me a lot of hate. Solid design. I like new Loki a lot. I think he's completely fine for the game. Old Loki would have been in like partial rework, but that's what they did. They partially reworked him and now I think he's solid. Loki was one of the more successful reworks of recent times in my opinion. Medusa is fine, no problems. Mercury is also fine. Merlin, fine, but almost has some issues because he's very hard to balance. Morgan Le Fay, issues. Obviously, her release was a bit of a shit show, and you have just a ridiculous amount of self-peel and healing and stuff that I think it needs to be toned down a little bit. Mulan has some issues, mostly down to like her animations and how her kit works together and things like that. She just feels very clunky, although I do like her overall like arching design and that she's like a weapon master that like trains up with them. It's almost like Bologna in a way. Neith is a fine design, solid. I don't think she's near perfect because she's pretty boring in my opinion, but a solid design that I don't have problems with. Nemesis is a near perfect design, just a really fun god to play in my opinion. Super like assassin, like really diving the backline, utilizing shields. Her ultimate is like nothing we've ever seen in Smite before, similar to Janus. Very, very cool. Neja is fine. I'm not a huge fan of Neja, but he's a solid design. No problems with him. Nike has some issues though. Her push barrier is just the most annoying thing to deal with in the entire game. I never feel good about dealing with it. Even if I deal with it perfectly by like stunning her, I still feel bad about it because I'm like getting pushed back and all this bullshit. Also, her ult is just like really annoying to play around. You know, if she has it up, you basically can't kill Nike. You know, you have to force her ult and then kill her, similar to like a Kronos or something like that. So yeah, I think Nike definitely has some issues. You could even maybe put her in needs minor changes, but she did get minorly reworked like fairly recently, I guess. So I'll put her there for now. Nox has some issues, you know, a little bit too reliant on her 2-1 combo for my liking. I would honestly maybe even put her down here. I preferred Old Nox, to be completely honest. Old Nox was way better, but I do like her ultimate. I do like her 3 a lot. Those 2 abilities are very cool, but I would change the passive, the 1 and the 3, which honestly maybe is a partial rework. The passive, the 1 and the 2, sorry, not the 1 and the 3. I'm going to get a lot of hatred from Nox players because I'm trying to remove the core identity of the character. I know a lot of Nox players are going to get very mad at me for this one, and I'm sorry, but I think her core design is toxic for the game. And I think a few Nox players being mad at high-res is better than a lot of other players being mad at high-res because they lost to Nox's bullshit. So I think genuinely she probably needs a partial rework. Nuwa, bring back Olbar, I'm putting her down here. No, I'm kidding. Nuwa's fine. Solid design. I don't really like her ultimate that much, but not enough to move her down a tier. I just don't really like the god. Her design is pretty fine. The main reason I'm salty about this is because I much preferred Olbar. Olbar was genuinely one of my favorite mages in the game, and they reworked her, and I'm annoyed. Odin, the rework was solid. I don't think I have any major problems with Odin anymore. He's a lot less reliant on Bird Bomb, which makes him a little bit less toxic to deal with. So I think in general, solid design. Olarun, I don't really like the slow time thing, but I guess it's a cool mechanic. I'll put him in solid design. Osiris, solid also. Pele, Yeah, I don't think I have any problems with Pele. I really do like Pele's design, actually. One of my more played assassins. Persephone, interesting one here. Obviously reworked very recently. And personally, I don't like the rework. Partially rework her again, in my opinion. You could even go for a full rework of Persephone, and I won't really complain about it. But definitely, her ult needs changing, her passive needs changing. The new passive is utterly pointless. Just give her something actually useful. She doesn't have to resist death. You know, I know that's part of her lore, but her passive doesn't have to be about resisting death. You can give her something else. It's like, you can do that. So I think some kind of like partial rework where her ult and her passive mainly are touched. But also the plants, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't really like the new plants at all. Poseidon, solid design, does what he does effectively. Raijin, solid. Ra, I think with all the changes they've made to Ra to like update him to modern Smite, I think he's genuinely a near perfect design. I like how Ra's designed a lot. Rama, also near perfect. Rat, probably solid design. I want to put him in near perfect because he brings a lot of cool things to the game, like the Acorns and stuff like that, but for the most part, I think he genuinely does have like maybe some minor issues that I would change. So solid design. Raven, near perfect. Obviously, I had one of the worst releases of the entire game. I probably was the worst release of the game in terms of being the weakest. But obviously, it's been changed. He's been partially reworked. He's been changed into an assassin from a warrior. A lot of things have happened for Raven, and now I think he's genuinely one of the more healthy gods in the game. Scylla is fine. No problems with Scylla. I could probably honestly put her up here. She's a bit like obviously snowbally, but honestly, if you get a reset with a Scylla, you probably played well anyway and you deserve it. So Ket, I personally don't like how she has so much mobility. It's a little ridiculous. So I'll put her in solid design. Yeah, I don't think it warrants saying she has issues really, but I just personally don't like how much mobility she has. Set's fine. Solid design, honestly. Skadi, partial rework. What I would like to see with Skadi is, like, just change Calder. Don't make it so you just target someone with a rune and Calder just goes and bites them. It's kind of boring, you know, maybe add, like, Calder has, like, additional effects on your abilities if he's up or something like that. I don't know, just something. I think Skadi's current design is really problematic and she definitely needs a partial rework, if not an entire rework. Like, her Slippery Ice is also one of the most annoying CCs in the entire game that no one likes to get hit by. Sobek is fine. No problems with Sobek. Sol, obviously a bit of a problematic release, but no problems with Sol right now. Solid design. Sun Wukong, a little bit boring for me, but solid design. I don't have any problems with Wukong. If anything, his only problem is that he's a bit too safe. It's kind of like Jingwei, but I don't think it warrants taking him down one place. Susanoo is fine. No problems with Susanoo. I know a lot of people do have problems with Susanoo, but for me, he's like completely fine. Sylvanas, fine. Terra, near perfect. I really like Terra's design a lot. Thanatos, near perfect. People say like Thanatos is problematic for the game just because he's an early game god. It's fine to have early game gods as long as they're not absolutely dominant and like dominating the early game every single game. Morrigan, I'll put her in solid design simply because Morrigan does still have problems despite it being like 4 years after her release or something. I can't put her in near perfect because she's not a near perfect design. Thor is genuinely one of my favorite designs in the entire game, probably top 5. I really love how Thor works, and he's like a little bit combo based. Thor near perfect for sure. Thoth is fine, solid design. Tiamat has some issues, mainly that she's overcomplicated. They went too in on Tiamat, and there's too much to consider and think about, in my opinion, both for you and for the enemies dealing with you. I think that's a little bit of an issue, and I would simplify her slightly. Tsukuyomi, solid design. I do like the idea of him being a ranged assassin. It's a lot of fun, but he's definitely has some balance problems that are kind of caused by design flaws in his kit, so I'll drop him down 1 tier. Speaking of tier, has some issues. I think he's a little bit of a problematic god for the game. You know, we all saw the speedy tier builds. Tier can very easily break the meta because of how hard he bullies lane, the amount of sustain he has, how easy he is to play, his displacement. You know, he's very easy to break the game with if something comes out that allows you to break the game. So I think tier definitely has some issues. Ula arguably could be here too because his damage is a little bit absurd in some metas and he completely dominates. But I think Ula is a solid design. I like Ula a lot. You know, personal opinion, he'd be up here, but I will put him here. For mana, I don't like him, but he's a solid design, so I'll put him there. Vulcan, same thing. Xbalanque, same thing. Jing Chen, honestly, same thing. Or maybe I will put Jing Chen in near perfect. I don't think I have any complaints about Jing Chen, really. Yamoja, solid. She does have a couple of issues in that she's a little bit too complicated to pick up, but I do like gods that are like that. You know, she's not like Tiamat where, like, it's just overcomplication for no reason. You know, Yamoja's complicated, but it makes sense why she's complicated and she's powerful because of it. Ymir, probably solid design. I think maybe even has some issues. You know, Ymir's cool and everything, but he's like so reliant on his wall to actually make good plays. You know, it's wall and freeze really, isn't it? You know, your 2 doesn't really do anything. Your ult often doesn't go off properly. I would like to see some changes, maybe to the ult, give it like a root or a stun if he fully charges it or something. So like, if you pop it early, you forgo the stun, kind of like a Susano knock up on his ult, but if you fully charge it, you get like a big stun at the end, something like that, I don't know. Zeus needs minor changes, in my opinion. Zeus, we haven't seen him in the meta for so long, but he was also dominant for so long before that. Zeus is just a really kind of problematic god that dominates or feeds, and I think some minor changes could really fix that. Zhonghui, solid design. I don't like him personally, but definitely solid design. And yeah, that's my tier list for gods by design and whether they should be reworked or not. So obviously most gods, the vast majority, are in near perfect or solid design because I think the vast majority of Smite gods don't need reworks. You know, even these ones that have some issues, I don't think they need reworks, they just need very minor changes. You know, maybe one ability gets changed or it's just like numbers tweaks, stuff like that. Needs minor changes is something that I genuinely think they need for the health of the game, and I think if they're left alone, it's unhealthy for the game with any of these. And then finally at the bottom we have the 2 tiers, which consist of 10 characters total that I think should genuinely be reworked in some way. So Arposh, Aphrodite, Hades, Nox, Persephone, and Skadi all should get partial reworks in my opinion, and Arachne, Bakasura, Bastet, and Freya should just get full reworks. Arachne, Bastet, and Freya have all been reworked in the past and it's clearly not been successful. They're still unhealthy for the game, so I think they just have to have full reworks. I think Baka's design is just incredibly toxic. You know, you could put Baka up here if you wanted to, but for me, I think he deserves to be placed down here. And we'll zoom out, get the whole tier list on the screen for you. There you go, that's the entire tier list. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you have any ideas for tier lists, like creative ideas like this one where it's not a meta tier list necessarily, then definitely let me know down below. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.